Hello YouTube, welcome back to the video. So, today I'm making a video in regards to optimal pad breaking and how you should score your experience. Um, it's important to keep a couple of things in mind as we do this. I released this a while ago, I haven't really updated it at all. The numbers have not changed though, but if you've already seen this, you might have already seen this floating around, but this is my document as well. I wanted to do a breakdown of it because I never did one when I actually released it. So we're going to start with the base numbers. These are all reference sheets from the MathCord. You can see right here as well as right here. I'll put the links to these spreadsheets in the description if you want to check them out, which you should. They're very useful. And if you don't know a lot about like how experience works, how experience share works, specifically this document is extremely helpful for it and extremely useful. I always say that you should check these out. Um, but in this document, you can see it tells us here, right? In terms of points scored, you have a decreasing value relationship between the amount of points you score at once and the amount of XP per point you're getting. So we're starting with this, right? Where you see that 2 gives you 50 experience, 25 per point, right? 1, obviously 0, 0. For 3, you're getting 23. For 4, you're getting 20. And then you see as you go down, it's going to go lower and lower and lower because of how the value is working and how the strategy and the numbers work. And this gets all the way down to 10.8 at 50, but to be honest, below 40, there's really not much of a difference. You'll notice very large differences, like once you get into the 30, it's about every 5 that there's a pretty good difference. And then obviously in terms of these numbers, you can see as well, there's a very large difference when you start out at the beginning, but it's got a really, fuck, I don't remember the name, logarithm? No, it's inverse exponential. I don't remember what that specifically equation is, but that's the one we're looking at, where it's never actually going to hit 0, but it's going to approach it, excluding the 1 point scored. So that's that section of it, which is if you're scoring, make sure that you're trying to score as little points as possible, but you want to score in more amounts, right? So you always want to score 2 points at least. Obviously, a side note, if you're stacking, that's slightly different because stacking gives you basic stats, but that aside. If you're trying to score, you always want to score 2 points at least, and you want to score as close to 2 points as possible to get the most value out of your XP and your energy and your points, right? Obviously, there's nothing against scoring 40 points. That's what I'm going to talk about later, where I say, we're not going to break pads. So let's get into that right now, which is we're looking at how much XP you get per point scored, right? So for 2, it's 50, and then for 40, it's 440. Um, I'm pointing these numbers out specifically because I will reference them later. But, if you use the formula, you see 10 times 40, that's 400 plus 40 is 440. For 2, it's 50 flat. So what is exactly am I talking about here? Well, we're talking about XP per pad break, right? So in terms of Pokemon Unite, you have 3 pads. And then obviously, once you kill the pad, you get either 3 Indeedee's top or 2 Indeedee's bot, right? And so the question here is it actually worthwhile to break these pads because the amount of XP the Indeedee's give is actually quite a large amount. So in this scenario, is it actually worthwhile to break these pads and to give your opponent these Indeedee's, or should you keep these pads alive and continue to farm neutral mons in this area or this area, right? And so that's sort of the question that I'm aiming to answer with this part of the video. So, we can see here for your broken pad, at your most efficient, which is scoring 239 times plus an overcap of 40. Side note, it might be slightly more efficient to score 238 times, put you at 76, and then score 3. But this is more about an upper and lower bound, so I didn't necessarily calculate that out specifically. I only calculated these out, I set them out beforehand. So getting back on track, right? You have 2 times 39 plus 440. So you're going to get out of this approximately 2,390 XP if you were to score 2 points plus an overcap of 400. Again, this is going to be split up between approximately 2 to 3 members of your team, and So it's actually not a whole lot of XP. We can see here, 2,000 is basically the amount that it requires to go from, level 14 to level 15. So that's basically what you're getting here. Obviously, for the lower amounts of XP, it's actually a lot given the scaling nature of how this XP works, right? Because you can see here, it's relatively small between the first, 4 or 5 levels, but as you go up, it increases in value relatively largely, right? So 2,390. Let's say you only scored 2 points, no overcap, you're going to get 2,000, 50 times 40. And then if you're only scoring 20 points, right? So 240 XP times 4, 960. Versus if you scored 2 sets of 40 points, that's 880. So the point here is that, first of all, like I said earlier, scoring low points has a very large and very easily to see, right? When I put it out like this, it's very easy to see that you're losing out on 1,500 XP, which again is basically the difference between level 11 and level 12 Mon, right? That's how much XP you're losing out by not trying to optimize your scoring. Obviously, I'm not saying to score 2 every time. I'm just trying to be a little bit, subjective about like, oh, this is the possibility of what you're technically losing out on. Even though you don't have to optimize every time, it's better to optimize sometimes than never. So moving on to the second part, we know that these are your values for how much you're going to get if you break the pad. Again, it's split over approximately 2 to 3 members of the team, maybe even more depending on if you're pad diving. Now, let's say you're breaking the pad bot. After respawn, you're going to get 3 Indeedee top, 2 bot. So if you're breaking it at a single time, this is 1 Indeedee, right? It's going to give 1,540 if broken in about 9 minutes, 8 minutes, 8, 10, 7, 10. You're wondering why did I choose these values specifically? Let me pull up the wild Pokemon data. Indeed. So you can see here, I chose based off of the time that they level up. The reason that I chose this time is so that you have an accurate description of when it is actually best to break them, the pads, so that you can deny more XP, right? Because if it's 841 and you wait until, like 839 to break, you can actually deny like a little bit more XP by not giving them the 840 spawns, right? Or well, technically if it's 841, you want to break then and give them the 840 spawns, I believe. I'm not 100% sure on how level ups work. I may be incorrect on that because I may be thinking about League jungle terms where if it gets killed it respawns and levels up. But more importantly is this, right? So if it's broken at X time bot, X being your time, and the amount of XP you're giving. So if you're breaking at 910, you're giving around 3k XP. If you're breaking around 540, you're giving around 2k XP. If you're breaking around 440, 1600 XP. Breaking around 310, you're giving around 560, 240, around 600. So obviously it's way better to break at around 410 or 310, right? Again, based on the spawns. If I'm incorrect on the spawns, please do inform me in the comments so I can fix the math. If broken at X time top, 3 Indeedee. And this is where we really start to get into the nitty gritty that's really important. 510, you're giving away 2,280 XP. To keep in mind, for reference, 2,390 is the max amount you're getting if you're the most efficient on pad breaks. And again, that's not happening every time. So you're actually losing a lot of XP. So, this is the breakpoints on counting down when you can actually break pad and not lose out on XP, assuming the opponent farms all the Indeedee. This also isn't a guarantee. I'm going to talk about that in the second part. I'm going to make 2 separate videos. This one's only about the math. The second one's about application of the actual theory. So in this scenario, it is most efficient to break at 510 or later if you are the most efficient with your scores. If you're the least efficient, it's around 340 to 240 time frame. If you're the most efficient, 610 on bot pad, and then around 510. 540 is pretty much the same, to be honest. It's a 60 XP difference. And then if you're trying to be really, really grungy, around 310, similarly to top pad. So a couple of things to take away immediately before I get into any of the advanced theory, which, like I said, I'll reserve for the next video. Number one, it is always better to break bot pad. This is simply just the truth because you only get 2 NDDs. If you're breaking top pad, you're giving over more XP, even if it is technically slightly different on the amounts, you're giving over more NDDs, which is more XP. So break bot pad first if you want to be aggressive and break pads. Second of all, it's generally not worth it to break pads based on this math. If anyone thinks that my math is wrong for whatever reason, please reply in the comments. I will try to address it. That way I can actually see. Because this is a big, important talking point for me. Excuse me. So again, that's sort of the memo of this whole thing. I will link this document below in the comments so you can check it out if you want. But here's sort of the math on breaking pads at a certain time.